We just returned from a cruise around the Mediterranean, and for each of the 7 cities we visited, I created a Google Maps list of all of the key places everyone recommends going. So the next few videos will be travel prompt lists, one for each city. Some lists I was able to complete entirely, some of them had a couple missteps, and a few of them had some additions. But if you're new here, my name is Jennifer from Watkins Through Life, and I am on a challenge this year to follow 52 book prompts and countless other life prompts throughout the year. Our next stop was Rome, Italy, and it took us a few hours to get there. But once we did, we absolutely destroyed our feet getting around to see everything as much as we possibly could. We were there on Republic Day, which meant that the city was not only full of tourists, but also locals flocking to the city for its parade and celebrations. And that meant that the city was packed and public transportation was packed. And because of the parade that started in the morning and ended at the Forum, we ended up doing Rome a little backwards. Usually we would have started at the Forum and gone up north, but instead we started at the top at Borghese Gardens and ended up working our way down, which worked out well because it was less uphill and less stairs for us, which I'm a big proponent of. We had hoped to use the public metro to get to Borghese Gardens, but if you've ever been to Rome, the Termini station is a nightmare to navigate. There are signs everywhere going to everything, and every form of transit meets at this one location, and for the life of us we could not find the metro. And I think it's because the train line that goes from Civitavecchia to Rome, that terminal stop is so far away from everything. So we ended up just walking the way to Borghese Gardens, which again was killer on our feet and probably wasted some time, but it was fun to be able to walk the city. And when we got to Borghese Gardens, we were completely overwhelmed. It is way bigger and grander in scale than we ever anticipated. Everything just looks so much smaller on the map. So basically what I'm saying is by walking, we chipped off a small bottom corner of it. And if you intend to go and really see everything that the gardens has to offer, 100% get a golf cart tour, or they have like these biking trolleys that you can rent out and just bike around. Definitely do that. The restaurant we ate at in the park came highly recommended, but honestly we weren't impressed. The carbonara just wasn't the best. We honestly had better quality in France, which I know is weird, but the eggs and the Parmesan were really curdly and gritty. The pasta wasn't completely cooked, so it was a bit crunchy. And what did I have? Oh yeah, I had risotto, which was also not cooked all the way, so it was crunchy risotto. And maybe we just overcook things as Americans, but we didn't experience that anywhere else in Rome, so I am chalking it up to the restaurant. Anyway, so we chipped off that corner of the park, heading towards the Villa Medici. The plan was that if it started to rain and thunderstorm like was in the forecast, we would spend the rest of the day at the gallery inside and observing beautiful art, which is something we would love to do anyways, but just wasn't the highest priority. But because the weather was beautiful, we kept on walking. The Villa Medici was gorgeous. We walked down, walked past the Spanish Steps, continued walking to the Trevi Fountain, continued walking, sensing a theme here, continued walking to the Piazza di San Marcello, and then finally ended up at the Roman Forum. The great thing about the Roman Forum on Republic Day is that entrance is free, including the Colosseum. The bad thing about going to the Roman Forum on Republic Day is that they still have all of the bleachers set up for the parade. And man, they do parades right. In America, we just sit on the curbside and watch and stand and bring our camp chairs. No. They had like sports bleachers lining the main street in the Forum. So those were all set up and in the process of being taken down. But also, even though it's free entry to these things, you can't get the free tickets ahead of time. Instead, there's this giant line to enter the Colosseum that like wraps around an entire block area, and it just was not worth it. We had originally booked a tour that would take us through the Colosseum, talk about the history of gladiators, take us underneath, but when the tour company realized it was Republic Day, they canceled it. I guess you can't do tours on a free entry day? I don't know what that's about. Obviously, this did not leave a lot of time for St. Peter's Basilica or the Vatican Museum, which I've heard you can basically spend all day at. But again, because of the tourist and the local crowd that was there, there's no way we would have been able to do all three, Borghese, Forum, and Vatican, all in one day. The crowds, the lines, the waiting times, just way too much. And as a hot tip for Rome, those bus tours that you see being sold everywhere, like the big red buses or sightseeing buses, cannot get you to the majority of sites you want to see. Places like the Spanish Steps, the Villa Medici, the Trevi Fountain, all of those are pedestrian-only streets. So even if you get one of those sightseeing bus tours, it will save you the headache of walking and dealing with public transit for long distances. But once you want to actually get off to see one of the sites, you are still going to have to walk. So honestly, I don't know if the price is as worth it as it would be for some of the other cities like Florence, because you're just not getting as much bang for your buck, in my opinion. Honestly, overall for Rome, we didn't feel like it was as magical as culture makes it out to be. Like when you walk the streets of Paris or Venice, you feel like you're transported into another world, a different era of time. And we felt like Rome, at least what we saw of it, was very modernized, which is great and fine. I'm glad that it's progressed with time and that it's developed overall and has maintained its lively culture. That's great. It just wasn't quite what we were expecting and not usually the vibe we enjoy when we travel to other places. We want to feel like we're in another place, you know? And we probably wouldn't spend 3 days there. Yes, we could go to the Borghese Gardens. Yes, we could actually take a tour of the Colosseum. Yes, we could go to the Vatican Museum and St. Peter's Basilica. But honestly, I feel like we could do those in a full day staying in the city, where we didn't have to worry about a 2-hour train ride from the port to the port, worrying about ship departure and ship arrival times, things like that. So if we were staying in a hotel overnight in Rome for a day, I feel like we could cross everything else on our lists and move on to other places that we found more fascinating. That's not to discourage you from going to Rome. Definitely go. It's something that you just have to see, one of those bucket list items you have to cross off your list. And it's incredible to put into perspective like the different eras of the Roman Empire versus the modern republic versus, you know, the days when Catholicism was really the reigning party, and to see all of those different cultures and times and eras really clashing and meshing together was really cool. So definitely go, definitely enjoy, but probably do a little more research than I did. And honestly, if we went to Italy again, we would probably spend the most of our time in Florence, which was our next stop. So don't miss out on that video because it was our must-see highlight of the trip.